Hi. So if you've clicked on this video, it probably means that you've just been diagnosed with diabetes type 2, or you've been diagnosed for a while, or you've got a family member, a friend, or a partner who's just been diagnosed with diabetes type 2. So now, just before we get into things, these videos are primarily for myself, just getting my thoughts out of my head, just documenting how I was feeling, what I'm eating, what I'm doing, and results and things coming in from doctors and the likes. I want to go a little bit back in time and explain a little bit about my story. So I, for the most part of my life, weighed around 70 kilos. I used to run every day. And then come 2020, now this has got nothing to do with COVID. This is all personal choice or just lack of motivation. I stopped running. I moved to London and I said to myself, in this smog, you can't run. It's just not a good thing. So I stopped. And that's probably the worst mistake I could have ever made. And since then, I've just been putting on weight. From 2020 to now 2026, at the beginning of 2026, I had doubled my weight. So 144 kilos, which is, when I think about it, absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, I moved up to the northeast and had sort of like aspirations. Oh yeah, when I get up there, it's going to be, fresh air, beautiful weather, living by the sea. You'll be able to go walking, maybe get back into running again. And none of that happened. I just sat on my ass. I went to work. I was busy at work. And just coming home and just then, eating. My wife, over the last couple of years, has been nagging me, you need to go and get a checkup at the doctor. You need to go and get a checkup. And I was, I'll do it tomorrow. And tomorrow never came. Until last month. I'm in between jobs at the minute. And I said, look, I've got some time. And I got an invitation come through from my local surgery to say, hey, come in and do like a man checkup. So like an MOT in service. So I thought, right, I'm going to go and do this. I've got the time. No real excuses not to. So let's do it. So I went up to the surgery and I did the normal sort of things: blood pressure, weight, height, and some blood tests. And I think every man sort of thinks, we're invincible, we're never going to get ill. I've hardly been to the doctor in my life, hardly been ill, apart from the odd man cold, and never really, needed the attention of a doctor. So blood results came in a couple of days later. Got a call from the surgery to come in and speak to the nurse about the results. Went in and she said, blood pressure's spot on. Cholesterol's a little bit high, but still well within, the green. So no need for action on that. And everything else, looks pretty good. So I went home thinking, that's great. Just I thought, and I did tell her, my wife and I, we do Lent every year, and not out of religious purposes, just to try and de-lard a bit. So we cut out things, and before then we decide on what we're going to cut out, and typically it's bread, crisps, chocolate, sugar, all the bad things. And we've been doing that since the beginning of the year, with the aspirations to stop on Easter weekend, because we had a trip to Corfu planned, and we said when we get there, that'll be the first time in a couple of months that we've actually been able to have some bread and something nice to eat. So so I said to her, I've been working on my diet. I've lost a little bit of weight, and when I say a little bit, I mean a real little bit, maybe 2 kilos. In fact, when she weighed me in at the surgery, I was 139 kilos. So I'd lost about 5k over the last 6 months. So I thought, all good, carry on with Lent and, carry on with what we've been doing. But always knowing that Lent is going to end at some point. And I think that always seemed to motivate me to do something because it had like a purpose. I was doing it with my wife. and it had an end date. So you knew you were stopping yourself from eating certain things you like to eat, but at a certain point you can go back to it. So it wasn't really a lifestyle change. It was more of a means to an end to de-lard after Christmas. But then a couple of days later, after I'd been to see the nurse, I got a call from the surgeon that I need to come and see the doctor. And I went, oh, okay. Maybe it's just a follow-up on the results. So went in to see the doctor. And he said, yeah, we need to discuss your diabetes. And I was like, whoa, wait, what? My what? He goes, yeah, you've got diabetes type 2. And that was a bit of a shocker. I haven't ever sort of like looked into diabetes, didn't really know the cause or the effect or whatever. I knew people who had diabetes need to take insulin and, but that was about the extent of my knowledge about it. So we went through a few things. He said, you're going to have to start taking some medication. I said, oh no, I'm already, on a diet, and I'm quite willing to carry on with that because I know I do need to lose some weight, and I'd rather try and keep it in check with diet and exercise. And he was quite adamant at that point, no, you need to get on this medication. So then that's when it sort of like clicked in my head, oh, this is maybe a little bit more serious than I thought. So, yeah, left the doctor, and didn't really pick up too much information. All I knew is that I had type 2 diabetes, and on the 27th of April, I had to go back. So I said to the doctor, look, we've got a trip planned Easter weekend, so I'll start taking the medication once we get back, because he did mention that it could upset your tummy and have some side effects. And he was all right with that. I can't remember what the medication's called. I put a little thing here on the screen of what it is. So came home, and you think normally you'd dive in and do all your research on what diabetes is, and I didn't. I did a little bit, but not as much as I think you should have, or I should have. So I looked around at a few bits and bobs, and then my wife brought me Dr Michael Mosley's diabetes diet book, and I started reading that. And that started to make a lot of sense, and gave me a lot more information, because it wasn't just about, what to do and how to do it. It's a little bit more about his story and also some other people's stories. So before I go any further, this is not advice. This is just what I'm doing and what I think's right for me. And I think I'll find out on the 27th after the blood test if I'm going in the right direction or not. Anyway, started reading the book. And he recommends a high protein, no or low carb diet. So that day I cut all carbs, sugar, and the likes out of my diet. Started eating high protein meals, so meat, vegetables and salad. No starchy veg, so nothing that grows under the earth, like carrots, potatoes, swede, things like that. Yeah, and that's where I started. And then started exercising more. So the last year and a half, I've hardly moved at all. I would come home from work and I'd sit down, and I'd get up in the morning and I'd go to work and I'd come home and I'd sit down. So I was sitting on my ass most of the day. Even when we used to go for a walk with my wife, I found it difficult. Yeah, I used to find going for a walk difficult. I'd get back pain, I'd be tired, and I just couldn't walk very far. And that was the start of this year. That's where I said I need to take Lent a little bit more serious, because I can't even walk. And I used to laugh at people like that because I was a runner. And I couldn't understand, when I used to go for a walk with some of my friends, that they couldn't walk as far as I wanted them to walk. And I didn't want to become one of those people, and I did. And it's very easy to slip into it. So, said, right, I've got to change something. Changed the diet completely and started walking. As you can see now, I'm on a walk. So it's now been about 3 weeks after my diagnosis. We've been away to Corfu. We did a lot of walking there. Stuck to the diet. Still sticking to the diet. So in the morning, I have 2 meals a day. In the mornings, I typically have 2 eggs and 2 rashers of bacon, grilled, lots of water, and only black coffee or black tea. a little bit of green tea, a little bit of peppermint tea throughout the day. And in the evenings, I'll have some meat, either a steak or some chicken or some fish and veg. And that's it. And I have, quite a bit of meat and quite a bit of veg. I'm not skimping out and only having a little morsel. Yeah, so stuck to the diet, came back, hadn't weighed myself at all. We've done about an average of 17,000 steps every day in Corfu, and I aim to keep that up, which is 17,000 steps more than I was doing before. I'm in a calorie deficit, and like I said before, cut sugar and carbs out of the diet. I have weighed myself since I've been back, so I've lost about 6 kilos in the 2 weeks, and I understand a lot of that is water, and that's not going to continue at that rate, but it's a good start. And I feel a lot more energetic. I feel a lot better, and I'm enjoying life a lot more than I was before, because I can do things that I couldn't do before. I can walk a lot longer. So yeah, that's a big positive. So we've just got back from our trip in Corfu. That was about 2 days ago. Got back on the Friday, and yesterday, the 12th of April, I took the medication for the first time. And I remember the doctor saying, yeah, this could cause stomach upset and a few other bits and bobs. I thought, well, I've never really had any problems with my stomach. I'm sure I'll be able to handle it without having any problems. So I took it with my evening meal, which I should have taken it with breakfast. Typical man, didn't read the instructions that well. So I had the tablet, and me and my wife headed out for a walk. Now, we split up about 4 kilometers into the walk, and I went one way and she turned around to go back. And I carried on walking for about another 100 meters. And then all of a sudden, I thought, oh, something's brewing. I need to go to the toilet. I think I'll manage to get home. About 100 meters down the walk a little bit further, and I was thinking, I am not going to make it home, so I need to find an option to go to the toilet. Luckily, just up the road from where I was a pub that was open, and I speed marched all the way there and only just made it. It was not a good thing. Yeah, so now the plan is to take the medication at breakfast and then maybe wait an hour before I go out for a walk, just to make sure something like that doesn't happen again. It's quite funny, actually, because in the afternoon we were talking to a friend who came around exactly about that sort of situation, needing to go to the toilet when you're out in the sticks. Now, I spoke about Mr. Mosley's book, and I did do some research, not as much as I should have, and I will be doing some more. But there's a lot of conflicting information out there about what you can and can't do, should and shouldn't do with diabetes type 2. I think a lot of people, when they get the diagnosis, are overweight. Not everybody, but I could imagine it's about 70% of people who have a diabetes type 2 diagnosis are overweight. So one thing you can do is lose some weight. That would definitely help, in my opinion, and that is my plan. I hopefully plan to have my sugar levels down considerably when I go for my blood test on the 27th. And hopefully at some point I can come off this medication, because I would rather not take medication. I'm not a big fan of taking tablets, pills, or anything like that. So my plan is to get back down to a normal weight, and I think for me that's around 85 kilos. So I've still got a long way to go. And like I said before, this channel and these videos are more for myself. It's like a little bit of a diary to see my progress, to get my thoughts out of my head, and to speak about things that you might not speak to anybody about. But speaking to a camera just makes things a lot more easy. So if you're interested in maybe following my journey and seeing how I do things right or do things completely wrong, and I will be open and transparent about everything that happens, and hopefully with a good ending. I don't want to end up with 2 stumps at the end of my legs. I would rather keep my feet, which is one of the consequences of diabetes type 2, nerve damage and the likes. So yeah, all joking aside, this is, if you're enjoying the content and want to hear more about my journey and my story, then please do consider liking and subscribing this video. I think it will help a few people, maybe even motivate them to just start like a diary about their thoughts and put it out there, and to learn maybe from some of my mistakes and hopefully learn from some of the stuff that I'm doing right. So please do like and subscribe. And if you've got a friend, family member, partner who has been diagnosed with diabetes too, and please share this video. I'll be trying to do at least 1 or 2 videos a week just to get my thoughts out, to tell you where I am, what's going on, and how I'm feeling. Yeah, so thanks for tuning in, and hopefully I'll see you again soon.